Good morning, everybody. Ben Jones coming back at you from the home workshop, doing another live video to chat about coffee. Today, we're going to look at the Melitta coffee filter. You might not know the name, but when you see the packaging, power of advertising, brand recognition, the Melitta coffee filter. If you don't recognize this, just walk through the grocery store. Well, next time you're at the grocery store, take a peek. You'll find this. I almost guarantee it. It's one of the things I love about the Melitta coffee filter is that you can get them anywhere. There's plenty to love about the Melitta coffee filter. Let's go back in time, 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago. Let's keep going back. Let's go back to 1850, let's just say. You want to make coffee, there's a handful of ways to do it. Essentially, three methods. One, there's a lot of just kind of rudimentary, just coffee in a pot, add some hot water, mix it, strain it, filter it. We had the coffee siphon. That came out in about the 1830s. We're going to do a bit on the siphon brewer in a little while, in a couple days. So stay tuned, keep checking back for that. The percolator, a lot of you have had percolator coffee. Some people call it church coffee. I know if you grew up going to any kind of church potlucks or the Sunday meetings, you always had a percolator of coffee bubbling and going. Those came about in about 1819 with the first patent of the percolators we know it today being in 1889. Then later on, with the inclusion of electricity, we had the electric percolator. There's the e-brick, which is a fantastic way, kind of the hot sand brewer, if you've ever heard it or seen that. Really great way to make coffee as well. As far as with tools and gear, if you like gear, there weren't a lot of ways to do it. And if you were making coffee pre-1908, it was probably a little bit messy. Cloth filters, you probably had, it just took a lot. And it wasn't unheard of to get coffee grounds in your cup or to over extract it and get this really bitter, that astringent burnt match. Hey everybody, see some more people coming in. It was rough. And if you had coffee was amazing, but the brewing wasn't really quite up to par for what the coffee could do. So Melitta Benz in Dresden, early 1900s, 1908, she was just sick and tired of getting bad coffee and coffee grounds in her coffee. So she went to her son was in school, went to his notebook and pulled out some blotting paper. If you've never used fountain pens, you would use it to like blot the ink off of the tip or to dry up ink if you were writing so you didn't smudge it all over. It makes actually a really nice permeable paper that you could theoretically use to filter coffee. So she took the blotter paper and she tried some different variations of it and essentially ended up taking a tin can, poking a bunch of holes in the bottom, and then lining that with the blotter paper. It looked somewhat similar to our modern day, this is a Melitta Wave, flat bottom brewer. So just imagine this with the holes in the bottom, but more of a tin can shape. She took that and then she would pour her hot water over the top and it would drip through, and we have essentially the world's first pour over coffee brewer. I love it. Fantastic. As time went on, well, let's stick with Melitta back in 1908. She knew she was onto something. She was drinking better coffee. It tasted so much better. The same beans, the same everything, but just the process improved. It was cleaner. The cleanup was simple. It was more sanitary. You didn't have to deal with a bunch of coffee grounds, and you just took that whole filter. When you were done, you just lifted it up and just right into the garbage or the compost. Sent it out to the pigs. Who knows what she was doing specifically with it. Spread the word. Earliest social media leveraging there, she started inviting her neighbors over and they would have a coffee hour. and she would brew coffee for them to show how clean and how lovely it could be. It was kind of the earliest versions of educating the consumer, which I hate that phrase. We don't want to, just go make some good coffee and have fun with it. Anyway, she started making coffee. Her neighbors loved it. They thought it was fantastic. It was clean. It was delicious. It didn't taste like burnt matches and rubbing alcohol. We've all agreed that burnt matches and rubbing alcohol is not the ideal flavor. So, Melitta and her husband, Hugo, they start the Melitta coffee filter company. And those early filters would have been just kind of a flat paper. And as time evolved, the shape moved from the tin can type brewer that was using the flat bottom filter to eventually what we know today as the standard Melitta elongated cone. We can find these in almost every grocery store. We stock them at our warehouse at Backdoor from Bronson. When I'm traveling, if I'm visiting family, I always know that I can find Melitta coffee filters. They're everywhere. And they should be. They very well should be. So let's look at the brew tools that you could be using with that Melitta. This is my very first pour over coffee brewer. It's plastic. It just sits right on top of the mug. You put your filter in there and your ground coffee and you pour your water through it. Now, there's just that one hole, pardon the dust in there. I haven't used it in quite some time, so it's a little dusty, but I still love it. That one little hole in the top, you can see that light coming through there maybe. That really restricts the flow of water, so we're going to utilize the grind size, but we're also going to rely on how slowly the water can drip through and how slowly our coffee can drip through to help us control some of our coffee brewing. And that's a huge benefit. I love using a brewer with flow restriction. I don't want the water to just gush through freely. To contrast that, people who know me, I often say mean things about the V60. I don't really mean it. This is the Hario V60. It's a great coffee brewer. This is a finely tuned Porsche, a Maserati, the GT500 from Ford. This is a Toyota Camry. This is going to get you where you're going all the time. The V60, you better know how to drive it. You have to know kind of how to use it. Not to get a decent cup of coffee, but to really get it to perform the best it can. Big fan of this. In the morning when I haven't had my coffee, easy. Let's put a little more time and effort and energy into it. So, they look similar. They're both pour-over style brewers. They both brew right on top of the mug, if you like. The big difference here is flow restriction, no restriction. This has just that ginormous hole in it. It has these really aggressive ribs, which I don't know if you can see. There we go, we're getting some side lights. See those giant ribs in that V60? That really lifts the filter off the edge of the wall. It allows a lot of water and air just to pass through, so we're getting really good flow. This relies a lot more on your grind size and your pour technique to control your flow rates. The original Melitta cones, I see that Ryan just joined. Ryan, we're talking about my love for the V60. My buddy Ryan over at Batdorf, he's one of the V60 masters in my world. Ryan, Tommy Kim, and Mike Cannon, if y'all are out there, I've got love for y'all and your V60 technique. Anyway, flow restriction on the Melitta just gives us a lot of great control. Allows you to brew more consistently without having to pay as close and tight attention to the small details and the small variables. I really dig it. The plastic one is great. It's a few bucks, not a big investment. I really like the plastic because it doesn't suck heat out of the brew. If you preheat your ceramics, you'll be fine, but the ceramic brewers, they really love to pull heat out of your coffee if you're using them. This is one of my favorite Melitta brewers that I have. This is actually a Melitta branded coffee brewer. It has, let's see if we can get that there, 3 holes in the bottom, real nice channels on there, not quite as aggressive as the V60. This was gifted to me from a dear friend. He knew how much I liked the Melittas. It's pretty special to me. Makes a nice cup of coffee. But if you notice, it has that same shape as the plastic one, where it has on the inside, there's that straight line right across, contrasted with the V60, which is just purely a cone. The Melittas, we have that elongated cone, whereas the others, the V60 and the Chemex, similar brewers have just a straight cone. Love my Melitta brewer there. Then there's a company called Bonmac. We used to kick these around. This is a single hole. Very similar to my plastic one. They all kind of do the same thing. After my plastic Melitta, the next one I got into using was the Bee House Dripper. Just a nice ceramic elongated cone as well. Uses the Melitta filters. We have a lot of variety for hand brewing tools that use the Melitta filters. This one happens to have 2 holes in the bottom. A little more aggressive flow rate than the Bonmac with the single hole. A little more aggressive than the single hole plastic. Really fun, good ways to brew coffee. There's also auto brewers. In, what was it, 1972, I believe, the Mr. Coffee brewer hit the market. Really, I don't know, another argument for changing the world in coffee. Didn't use this style filter. It would have used the flat bottom paper filter. Both are great options. With the advent of the home brewers too, we saw a lot more people using those types of things, and then we started to see the metal gold cone filters. It's essentially the same shape, same geometry as our Melitta papers, just in a reusable mesh. There is a difference in cup quality, however. If you caught our AeroPress video where we were talking about the differences between making sort of French press or espresso style versus more of a Chemex style or a really clean filter cup, I would integrate that metal filter to the AeroPress. If you're using the metal cone, the gold cone on your, you can use these right in your Melitta filters for pour over. You can put them also into your drip brewer, use them that way. Just know that because it's metal and non-absorptive, the oils, the fines you're going to pass through, you're going to get a different quality of cup. Not a lesser quality, just a different quality. If you like texture oils, go with the metal disc. If you like, or the metal filter. If you like a little cleaner, grab the paper. All right. Melitta company, they do, this is a Melitta brand paper filter. This is what I used in my my Bonavita coffee brewer back there. It's your standard flat bottom basket. That fits right in. We can brew coffee in that. There we go. All right, so there's a lot of shapes, a lot of geometries. Do they make a difference? Yes and no. If you're getting really, if you dive really deep into these sort of things, some people will only ever use the flat bottom geometry. Fair enough, that's great. There are some people that prefer the uniformity of the cone. Great. It has a much more uniform line of symmetry. Slightly more asymmetrical is our elongated cone with the Melitta filters. some things to consider when you're using that because of that difference in geometry. If we look at the filters, don't think the camera will pick it up, but along the base and one of the edges, you're going to have a crimped seam. To start, I will always fold the crimp down, just give it a crease, and then I'll fold the base down as well. That just allows my filter to sit snugly and neatly into the brewer. Similarly, I haven't seen this so much with the Melitta filters, but some similar brands, particularly grocery store brands, the crimping and the seal along that bonded edge isn't as strong, and I've heard complaints of people brewing on their Clever or other brewers that are similar, where that edge has busted out and then they get coffee grounds all over. So another reason to go with a name brand filter. We offer, out of our warehouse, we have both the Melitta brands and the Filtropas. Fantastic. I've always been partial to Melittas just because that's what I learned on. And they have the flavor enhancing micro perforations right there. It says it right there. I don't know if it really makes a big difference, but it's part of it and I like it. So let's talk about how we're going to add water to our filters here. This is my pour over kettle. I'm going to add some water in here. I always want to start right in the middle, but because it's elongated, instead of pouring in a perfect circle, I'm going to do more of an oval, just to really get everything nice and wet. Give that good vigorous initial dose of water, let it sit and mellow, let the water soak into the grounds, 30, 45 seconds. Once it's kind of slowed the dripping, we'll come back and we'll just go back right into the middle and just start to make that same oval circle back and forth, getting that water to break up any dark spots, help that brew moving along, and we're going to get things rolling that direction. Let's get you a recipe for this. For your standard diner mug, this is a 10-ounce mug. I know exactly how much water this is going to hold. So in my 10-ounce mug, I'm going to measure out 19 grams of coffee. Oh, this is backwards because we're doing the thing. I apologize. 19 grams fresh ground coffee. Let's go ahead and heat our water to 200 degrees. We're going to be losing a little bit of temperature from the time the water pours out of the kettle to when it gets into the grounds, just because of the space there in the air. If you're using ceramic, if you haven't preheated this thoroughly, the ceramic will suck in some of that heat as well. It will use a little more water than if you're using, say, an AeroPress. If heat retention is a major concern, the plastic isn't a bad option if you're brewing in a controlled environment inside with a known temperature. So we have 19 grams coffee, medium coarse. For our water, this is a great starting point. If you multiply your grams by 17, it's going to give you some math. Go ahead and do that math there for you. I happen to know that when I'm doing this into my mug, I will pour, just because I can't do math in the morning, 313 grams is what I add for water. We absorb a little bit into the grounds, the rest drips through into the coffee, and we have a nice bit of coffee. If you haven't yet got a scale at home, we have these little scoops. They're roughly 2 tablespoons. Depending on how you're scooping, if it's ground or if it's whole beans, if it's Italian roast, medium roast, French roast, your roast profile, what the blends components are, a 2 tablespoon scoop works out to be roughly 9 to 10 grams. I know it's backwards. I apologize. I kind of like old things, old tools. I like typewriters. I like computers too, but yeah, we're gonna struggle through it. It's all good. Anyway, these are some fair recipes that you can run through. Definitely recommend grabbing a scale to brew with. I know we've really been kind of hammering this in last handful of days. They go way beyond coffee. If you get a nice little scale, it can change your life in the kitchen. If you do any baking, it's a great way to really get accurate and consistent baked goods. There's a big difference between a scoop cup of flour, a sifted cup of flour, or a measured out dose of flour. You can really get precise if you're using a scale. So, quick summary. Melitta coffee filters. Melitta Benz, when she invented these in 1908, literally opened the door to a whole new way of brewing coffee. Her company has grown since 1908. It is now valued, depending on who's doing the math, close to $2 billion as a global company. They offer more than just these standard little filters, but that's an awful lot. Think about how many people are brewing with these. Anyway, it just makes my mind kind of hurt a little bit. Coffee filtration, really, that quality filtration changed the world. What's really interesting about the Melitta filter is that it predates the French press. Most information out there on the French press says it came about in 1929 with major revisions and new patents on it in 1958. So this is quite a fantastically old brewer. It's been around for quite some time. Similarly, with that theory of filtration, when Melitta invented and distributed out her filters, people started thinking about that. Late 1930s, Dr. Peter Schlumbaum began diving into coffee filtration as well. And then in 1941, he gave us the Chemex coffee brewer, which has a phenomenal and fantastic filtration system on that as well. So, go out. If you've never used a Melitta pour-over system, toss a few bucks into just a nice plastic elongated cone. This is a number 2 filter. Get a number 4 perhaps. It'll give you a little more rise. This one fits fairly snug in here. If you get a number 4, it kind of brings it up, makes it less likely to overflow out the edges with your grounds. It's a few bucks investment. Give it a try. See what happens. If you love it, and I'm pretty sure you will, because it's a great clean cup of coffee. Next step could be moving into a V60, just because it's another way to be exploring coffee. Nothing wrong with that good old plastic filter. All right, I'm starting to ramble and babble a little bit. I just really love the Melitta filters. I really love the profile coffee you can get from them. And I love that when I go to visit friends and family outside of my little network of immediate geography, I know that I can find the coffee filters I need. All right. I'm still collecting suggestions for improv brew, so feel free to drop into the comments. Hashtag improv brew, all one word. Let's make some coffee using non-traditional bits. If there's something you would like to see me try to brew with, kind of what's called zombie apocalypse style brewing, MacGyver brewing, so to speak, put those in there. I would love to get some suggestions and put up a video with those. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing, in our series, we're also going to have some info on siphon brewing. We're going to look again at this in a few more days. And I've got a very special dancing goats video coming up soon. So if you are not familiar with the history of the dancing goats and the legend of the dancing ghost discovered coffee, go to our website, batdorfcoffee.com, and take a browse through. We've got some fun things to look at there. Thanks y'all for hanging out. I'm gonna go make some coffee, and today's my anniversary, so I should probably go say happy anniversary, and Word's gonna do some. I'm not going anywhere this year, apparently. So all right, take care everybody.